My name's Mark Johnson. I'm a Superior Court judge in California, a retired Army colonel, and I've teamed up with retired Army Command Sergeant Major Gregory Coker, and we're here to help veterans. Okay, hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Judge Mark Johnson, and one of the biggest problems I've dealt with as a Superior Court judge presiding over a veterans treatment court for 7 years has been the issue of veteran suicide. Under my watch, and this is not something I say easily, I've had 4 veterans die. These were all combat veterans, and 2 suicide, 2 maybe suicide. They were just overdoses and both of them were found in hotels, and that's something we'd like to help. You hear that number 22 a day. It's pretty accurate. 22 veterans die a day from suicide, and things are a little better now, but we have a special guest here today who suffered that pain herself. But first off, I'd like Sergeant Major Greg Coker is with me. You look like $1 million, Sergeant Major. You look great.
Maybe 99. No, hey, thanks. Thank you, Judge Johnson. I'm Sergeant Major Gregory Coker, retired CEO of Reaching New Heights Foundation, and we like to bring interesting topics and things that will be enlightening to you folks tuning in. And today, as Judge Johnson mentioned, it is a very serious topic we're going to talk about today. I did 2 tours in Iraq, and we had some people come back and had some challenges over there, but we were able to bring, for the most part, at the brigade I was at, bring folks back. And when I got to Veterans Court, we lost several people. I was around when several of the individuals that Judge Johnson talked about either committed suicide or kind of gave up, and I don't take that lightly. We where I went down range and was able to bring folks back, and then I come back here to the civilian side, and where I think all of that's behind us, and we lose people over here. So with that said, just kind of sharing how serious this topic is. I'm here with somebody who's a strong and brave lady who is willing to kind of share her life with us a little bit, and that's Evita de la Cruz. And if you would just kind of introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Evita de la Cruz. I am an Air Force veteran, Iraq veteran, mother of 2 awesome kids, and the CEO and founder of Veteran Suicide Awareness Project.
Okay, Evita, hey, thank you.
Yes.
I'll say this. I was afraid to ask you to do this. I was kind of chickened out like 3 times, and I don't know. It just seemed so painful what you went through. I didn't want to talk about it, but I think it's something we ought to be talking about. Because I know your husband took his own life, and he was an Army veteran.
Correct.
Let's talk about you. And I will say, your daughter Liliana's here.
She's here.
She was over. Okay, she's over there now. She's about as adorable as you can get, and so if I inappropriately smiled, that's the reason. But tell us about are you an Air Force brat? Would you call yourself that?
I would. My dad and my mom met when my dad was stationed at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines.
Okay.
So I was made in the Philippines but born at Travis.
Okay. Okay. And who's this young lady here? Let me take a wild guess.
This is my daughter, Liliana de la Cruz. Okay. She's 10 years old.
And she's your husband, James'
Yes.
daughter?
Yes.
And is it okay if do you mind? Or I think she looks pretty solid, but is it okay if she's here?
I'm perfectly fine with it. She's heard my speeches. She's gone to different events, so she knows my husband's story.
Well, I read up on you a lot. I try to not waste your time. So You were okay. So born in Travis, and I think you lived out in the high, what we would call the high desert here. We're down in like Inland Empire, Riverside, San Bernardino County, high desert.
Yes, I grew up in Hesperia and Oak Hills. I graduated from Hesperia High School in 2000, and after high school, I went to the Air Force.
Okay, why'd you pick the Air Force? Father?
My dad.
Okay.
To follow in his footsteps.
Family.
Is your dad still alive now? Or?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay. Did he encourage you?
He did encourage me.
Okay.
He took me to the recruiter's office and was like, here
there you
she
go.
is. She's ready.
How old are you?
18.
Wow.
Oh.
I think we need to adopt that across the board. That approach. I know a lot of people
That's a
would
different
say
story.
I'm going to do that. But, okay, so you, 18, you joined the Air Force. Let's talk about your Air Force experience. 2000, is that what year we're at now?
About
Okay.
2000. The first time I flew on a plane by myself was going to Lackland. I had to figure out how to maneuver through the airports because I've always done everything with my parents and never did anything alone. And all of a sudden, I'm like thrown into the world. And, I get to Lackland Air Force Base and these TIs are just yelling at you. And I'm like, oh my God, what did my parents do to me? Where did they send me?
Where, so,
So you're doing
TI, training
Started
instructor?
Yes.
Okay, we call
Yeah.
them drill instructors in
training.
the Army.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we're both Army vets, certainly. Okay, so you must have been assigned a specialty at some point. What we would call an MOS.
yes, mine is called AFSC, which is Air Force Specialty Code. And my AFSC is medic.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So a medic.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I'm sure that was pretty interesting for you. I mean,
I actually really enjoy what I do, I
Okay.
did in the Air Force. I had a lot of experience. I deployed to Iraq twice. I learned a lot. You work with a lot of different people from like different parts of the states, and you interact with people from different parts of the world. So I'm very grateful for the experience that I had, and it's actually helped me in my civilian career where I work as a licensed nurse.
oh,
You're still in the Air Force Reserve?
Correct.
How many years do you have?
I actually had to take time off after my husband's death, so I have quite a few years to make up.
And what's your rank in the Air Force?
Right now, E6.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Sergeant, thank you for your service.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, now tell us about your first tour. Well, when did you meet James?
My first tour was in 2006, and I actually met him on my second tour in 2009, October 2009.
Where was the first tour, 2006? Where was that to?
Both tours were to Balad
Okay.
in northern Iraq.
Cool.
So you did 2 combat tours before. Well, you were on your second combat tour when you met James.
Correct.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, can I ask you how you met him? You must have fallen in love.
Well, I actually met him as a patient because I'm a medic, so he was there, and that was back in the day when they had these little. Remember how back in the day they had iPods? Like you used to charge your little iPod. Now you
Yeah,
play
yeah,
everything on your phone. So he had a Zune, and I remember he was a patient, and I was just sitting there at the desk while the patients were sleeping. He kept walking back and forth. He was walking back and forth to the bathroom, and every time he walked to the bathroom, he would pass in front of the desk. So by the second time, I was like, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" He's like, "No, I'm fine." And then he brought me his Zune. He's like, "You think you could charge this for me?" And I was like, "All right, I'm going to charge it." So when I plugged it in, I noticed that it was at 100%, and I was like, oh, "Okay."
Set up. I knew that. I know how Army guys work.
Yeah, he was
then-
Army.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was.
He said it was 100% charged already. Set up.
You charge this.
But so then I was like, "All right, you want to sit down and watch a movie with me?" So we watched the movie.
You invited him to watch the movie.
Yeah, at the desk where I was sitting, I was like, "Let's just watch a movie." So I
You
don't
must have liked this guy.
He was cute.
Yeah,
mean,
you must
like,
have liked
come on
him the
now.
fact that you're. Well, I just took from the iPod scam. Seems like something, but is one thing. But when you invited him to watch a movie, with
I did. We were sitting there while everyone else was like, all the patients were sleeping, and I was sitting at one desk, and then my partner was sitting at the other desk, so we were kind of like talking back and forth, and
Yeah.
we were just watching a movie, just hanging out. And he had told me that he was stationed at Fort Hood. I didn't know where that was,
Yeah.
but he had told me that it was at Killeen in Texas,
Yeah.
and he grew up in Houston, and the Army was pretty much his life.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And I remember that the night after, that day after when we talked, he was supposed to head out to Germany. So
that was the end of his Iraq tour,
no,
or
no,
not?
no.
Was he injured or something?
He was injured. He was headed to Germany, and so
yeah.
when he was leaving, like he was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna see you again, but can I get your email address?
Cool.
Because we couldn't text each
Military
other.
love hats.
Yeah.
We couldn't text each other. First it was a Zune,
Yeah.
and now it's the email address.
Okay. Yep.
So I gave him my email address, and he was like, all right, I'll write you. And I'm thinking like, okay, whatever, So he actually does email me, and he was like, hey, I'm coming back to Iraq, and I think I'm going to come back through Balad. Like, could we like meet up? And I was like, well, suspect, but okay.
Well,
So we did. We actually met up, and we went out. We went to dinner. Dinner at the
you're in
T-Pack.
Balad.
Yeah, we went
I
to.
was gonna say
Mess hall dinner.
Yeah, we went to mess hall dinner.
I only did one tour in Iraq, but
But it was Air Force
The
food,
mess
so he
hall.
loved it.
oh,
Yeah.
Better than Army food.
I will
man.
say I've done a lot of I did a lot of complaining about the Air Force that all they do is they don't build one B-1 bomber and they get like a ton of like stuff for all their people or that. I know I've been a little hard on the Air Force at times. So.
It happens. It happens. He used to give me a hard time too.
Well,
but-
that's cool.
Yeah.
So-
That's really kind of it's really a
It's a
beautiful
great
story.
story.
So when we both come home, I think I came home like the end of January. He comes back the end of February, and this number, I remember exactly where I was that day because I remember I had recently bought a car before I left, and then I went to go get the oil change and like the maintenance done and the tires rotated, and I remember seeing this number pop up on my phone, and I was like, who the heck is calling from like 832? Like, where is this? So I answer it, and I heard his voice. He's like, "Hey, it's me," and I was like,
Is that
Who's
Khalid?
this?
What's
Yeah.
832? He was back
Houston.
in Fort Hood.
Oh, he's back.
Okay,
in
I
Houston.
got it.
So then-
What year are we at now?
"We're in 2009." Well,
Okay, I got it.
2010. 2010.
Okay,
Like
got
the
it.
beginning.
Okay.
So he calls me, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh! Like you really called me?" Like, wow. So then we were talking on the phone. He was like, "Hey, I'm on leave for like a couple weeks. Can I come and see you?" And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Where were you?
He's moving along. That's
I
Army.
was here in
You were here.
Yeah, I
and he
was
wanted
here.
to come see you.
He wanted to come visit. So I'm like,
Army
wow,
guy.
all right.
Yeah.
So then we planned it, and I honestly did not think that he was going to come. But when
What did you say? Did you say yes?
well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, she showed the video. Remember, she wanted to watch the video together. So
Okay. So you said yes.
So I was like, all right, cool. So we decided that we were going to hang out in San Diego because it's a good area. It's a nice area to like. There's beaches.
yes.
It's like nice. And
How old are you, Evita? at
How old
this-
was I back then?
Right. At this point
Okay.
here, we're talking about. How old are you?
27, 28.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
You dog. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't
know,
say
I know,
that.
I know.
Liliana has brought upon me a different type of. I was, as I've said, I was scared to ask you. I was scared to talk to you.
Never,
And I know I
don't.
would. But that being said, okay. So 20. Never mind.
So then-
27. Let's go on.
So then we go and we plan like a few days. I think we're like 4 days out in San Diego because he has a good friend that lives out there.
Yeah.
And he has like some other friends that were also on leave. So they're all like planning to hang out. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just hang out with him and some Army guys. Like, it'll be fun. Like, right? I'll be safe, right?
Sure.
So then we hung out, and it was honestly like the best time ever. Like, we had
wow.
so much fun. Like, his personality, he was like, I remember walking downtown, and he was just like so friendly with people, and I wasn't like so used to that because he'd be like, hey, what's up? Like, just talking to someone. And
So his personality was just
very
friendly,
like, yes,
open. It
yes.
sounds like he had had a
like
very,
people were drawn to him. And
okay.
so I was drawn to him too, obviously.
Okay.
So then, like, he was getting ready to leave, and then I was like, all right, well, it was nice hanging out with you, like.
Leave to go back to Fort Hood.
Yeah, to go back
How
to
old was
Fort Hood.
he?
Same age.
Same age as you.
Yeah, but I was only 7 months older, but he used to give me, like, so much crap for being older than him. I
Wow.
was like, really? It's not even a year. He's like, but you're still older. I'm like, I may be older, but who looks older?
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
God.
But So we still talk to each other, and we actually decided to start dating. So I was like, this is going to be hard because I'm in California and I'm going to school, and and he's in Fort Hood. It's not like he can just leave every weekend. So at the beginning, our relationship was really expensive, like flying back and forth from California to Texas, back and forth.
Yeah.
And especially like on 4-day weekends, that's like when I would definitely go and see him, because I can leave on Thursday, like get there Thursday, and then like Friday, Saturday we'll hang out. And I just got to hang out with him, and I got to meet his family and see where he grew up.
So you were on active duty then too?
Reserve.
So you were doing a reserve, and he was on active duty.
Yes.
Okay.
So, it just happened so quickly, and then he came out here and he spent time with my family, and I let him meet my son Mark, who was about 7 at the time.
Okay, so
he was about 7 at the time.
What year are we up to now?
This is still 2010.
Okay. Do your parents like him? Oh.
I think at first my parents didn't like him, especially my dad. Like being like, who's this army guy trying to like?
Oh, Air Force thing.
Yes, that's what it was.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So at first your dad.
So at first my dad was like, I don't know if I like this guy, but
was that a little bit? I do think sometimes men with their daughters.
I think it's like that. No matter how old you are.
Yeah. If you're 60, you're still like, she's not good enough for my daughter, or he's not good enough.
Yeah. So I think that's what it was. But I remember I signed up to go to nursing school, and we had been dating from like February to September, and then I remember like being at nursing school, and I was like, man, I feel really sick. Like, what's wrong with me? Am I getting the flu? And this was like a week into school, so I was telling like my classmate, I got close with her. I was like, man, I'm sick. And then I told her, she's like, oh, you're probably pregnant. I was like, oh, girl, don't say that. So then like I go home and I take a test, and I was like, oh my God, I am pregnant.
Oh, you said you are?
Yeah. I found out I was
the
pregnant.
little line or something
Yeah,
showed
I found
up?
out I was pregnant. So then,
okay.
So then me being the type of person that I am, I wanted to tell my parents like the perfect way. So of course, what do? I write a letter. Like I wrote like little notes, like cliff notes on what I was going to tell my parents and how I was going to say it, because I wanted it to be perfect.
Right, you wanted to do that. Okay.
So then I was like, all right, I'm going to tell them the next day. So I wrote the note. I put it under my little lamp next to my bed at my mom's house. And so I come home that day when I was supposed to tell them like at dinner, like I had it all planned out. It was be great. So then I go in my room and I'm like, oh my God, my room's spotless. Like, why is my room clean?
Your mom cleaned it.
The only time that my mom ever decided to clean. Like,
Did she find the note?
She found the note.
Okay.
She found the note, and so I was like, oh my God, like my heart dropped. So then my son comes behind me, and he was like, Mama and Papa want to see you. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I died a little bit inside. So then I was like, oh my gosh, should I go in there? My mom was holding it. And it was cute too, because I had like a copy of the little ultrasound, and you could see Lily, like she looked like a little jelly bean. Uh-huh. And I thought, like, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this to them. They're going to be like happy for me. No, they weren't happy the way they found it. But then, like my mom was like really angry, but my dad, he's kind of like the calm, mellow one. He's like, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. Like, this is gonna be good.
Good for
like,
him.
We're gonna.
Even though he's Air Force, I like this guy already.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So my mom was mad. She's like, you need to like marry him. I'm like, I don't want to marry him. No, I'm not gonna do it.
But you liked him anyway. So.
But I did like him.
But you did marry him.
I did. He eventually after asking me on the third time, I eventually said yes.
Okay, tell me about the conversation when you called James up and said, I'm pregnant.
I pretty much sent him the picture, and then I waited, and then I called him. I said, guess why you're going to be a dad? And he was like, no way.
Okay.
Did he have any other children?
No.
Okay.
So it was his first one.
Was he a good guy about it?
He was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe it. Are you serious? He just kept saying, are you serious? I'm like, I wouldn't lie about something like this.
Yeah, like, no.
Yeah, why would I lie?
Yeah, so then after him asking me to marry him at the third time, I was like, I guess.
Okay, so he wasn't. I mean, you didn't answer the question. Was he a good guy?
He was. You know how I know?
He was. He asked you to marry him 3 times, finally beat you down, and you said yes?
That's Army.
Yes, but let me tell you when I knew that he was the guy that I was supposed to be with. When he told me that he fell in love with my son. That's when I knew, like,
Okay,
all right,
that was the guy.
yeah. So we got married in December. We went to Vegas.
So he was
What-
conversation that he was really a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Really good guy.
When did you get married?
December.
December 2010?
Yeah. So it happened really fast.
Jesus, you guys are. Yeah, I was going to say the whole thing. Wait, I'm trying to remember. When did you first meet him? 2010?
No, October 2009. And
Oh,
then,
I got it.
And
But
then
still,
he came and saw me in like
yeah, that was
February 2010. When
big
he came
18
then,
months.
Like, I was already
Yeah.
married.
So you got
Whoa.
married in Las Vegas.
Yes.
When,
And here she is.
When was this one born?
She was actually meant to be born on his birthday, which is April 7th.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I went to go get induced because he was getting ready to deploy, and I wanted him to like be there for when she was born. So we went to induce her on his birthday. I remember we went to the hospital, and I remember I was like so sick. I was like threw up all over the parking lot. I was crying, and he was like, "It's okay, it's okay." Like we
Wow.
went in there, they induced me, they did like everything, gave me the medication for it, and she was like, "Nope, it's not happening."
She had her
So
own mind.
they sent me home. I was there all day, like contractions. They sent me home
Yeah.
for like 2 days, and she was born on the 9th.
Had he left by then?
No, he was still here.
Wait,
Okay.
what
He
was,
got
so
to
what
stay.
was his birthday? The 8th?
His birthday is the 7th.
7th. I
and,
got it.
And hers is the 9th.
Okay. What year was he born? Again?
83.
Okay.
And she was born in 2011.
So, what was your plan at that time? You were probably going. I mean,
After-
obviously you're getting married. And, yeah. So what was
Well-
the plan between the two of you?
Well, he was going to deploy, and I was going to stay home in California with my family.
Okay.
And then I would fly, while he was deployed, I would fly back and forth to visit, to take her to see his family
Okay. Where was his family living?
in Houston.
Okay.
Okay. So, when did he leave for his second tour in Iraq?
He probably left, I think, I want to say July
Of-
2010.
Okay. Oh wait, no, she was born.
No, 2011, sorry.
11.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So 2011, he leaves. Which unit did he deploy with?
He
Which
was,
division? Do you remember?
I think 182.
Was that part of First Cav?
First
or-
Cav, yeah.
First Cav.
First
Okay. Did you stay in? You probably stayed in contact with him when he was in Iraq.
Well, he called, I think, a couple times. He was only able to call a couple times, but most of the time was like on Skype.
Okay.
He was, if his internet was okay, he would video chat me on Skype, and I would send him pictures of her, and I'd send her pictures, of course, on like Facebook. And
It's
stuff
hard
like
for
that.
me, as I talk to you, to know that he took his own life in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he suffered some trauma over there. Do you, or did he? I guess
you know
did he
of?
suffer trauma?
not, not that I know of, like the kind of trauma that you would probably
Or
like want to talk about. But I know that he was injured in Iraq.
well, I mean, I imagine both Sergeant Major Coker and I, we've worked with a lot of vets who've suffered from trauma, and I kind of look at it like mental trauma, but also physical. And did he tell you things about what happened over there that bothered him?
He didn't like to talk about it, so I didn't
Okay.
ask him.
And he was, you know, he was in a combat unit as well. So a lot of times, you know, just from I did a couple of tours. Just there's a level of stress and a level that just kind of I almost associated with kind of a cold sweat. And so I'm sure, you know, if he didn't talk about it, there's probably some things. Was there a point when when you talked to him that you kind of noticed something at that particular point about him that was different or not so much?
I kind of noticed his personality wasn't as like outgoing and bubbly, so to speak, as it usually is.
Is
the
this
first
when
one?
he came home?
Or
That's when he came home.
okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When did he come home?
He came home around August, September 2012.
Was he? Did he leave service at that point?
No, he was still active duty.
Okay. And so where were you two living? Or I should say, wait, when was Liliana's birthday?
April 9th, 2011.
11. I got it. Yeah, I'm sorry. So when did he come home?
He came home around August, September of 2012.
Okay.
Okay. And did he come home in the middle of his tour? Usually they had that 15-day.
He did. He
Oh, he
did
did.
come home.
Did he see? Did
He saw her. She actually took her first steps to him.
Oh, wow. How neat.
How old was she? About then?
Oh, buddy, a little before a year.
Okay.
How? Tell me about that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. This is
And he
a
comes
tremendous
home
experience.
and meets his daughter for the first time, and he's out in a war zone. And tell him,
It was awesome. He was really good with her. He was really gentle, and I remember we were getting ready to go to the airport, and he was like, "I don't want to leave," and I was like, "I don't want you to leave either." Of course, I'm crying. Like my mom's crying because she's like, "Don't leave." And then he was accidentally late to the airport.
yeah.
So he got to stay like another day or two, and I'm glad that
That's
happened
Hey,
because
how does that happen?
when we came home, that's when she took her first steps to him.
Oh, wow.
So he would have missed that.
Amazing. Amazing. So
So he got to have that.
Okay.
he goes back.
He goes back
So-
to Iraq, and
He goes back and he comes home, and then we had
How
planned.
long was he back? I mean, he went back and to finish his tour. Was that halfway point? He had
He was
another
almost a halfway
6 months.
point.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he did another 6 months or so.
So he comes back, and then we had planned to, because I was done with school, and I was working, so I was like, all right, let me transfer my license over to Texas so I can work as a nurse out there,
Okay.
and then we'll just live our lives in Texas. So that's what we had planned on doing. We actually, we were gonna live. I didn't know if we were gonna live on post, so we actually found a place for us to live off post, which is probably like 2 miles away, which isn't bad. It was
Okay.
a cute little.
Killeen, outside of
In
Killeen,
Killeen.
somewhere. Yeah.
So-
Just for everybody, Fort Hood is a huge base,
It
and
is huge.
Killeen is the civilian or the city outside
City.
there.
So we lived in Killeen, lived in a cute little duplex that he had found us. And, we were just living our lives, and my son was there, obviously, Lily.
How old's your son at this point?
He's about 9.
And how old Liliana would be about 1 or 2?
She's about 21 months.
Okay.
21 months.
Did you? I know, and I'm going to ask this because I've read about you and I've talked to you. Did you notice differences with James when he came home? Because you've described a man who was jovial, sounded like very, very personable, was kind of guy that everybody would like. Did that change?
He had like a short temper. He was angry. He used to like yell at me all the time. He used to talk to me like the way he never talked to me before, and I was like, who is this person? Like, I
wow.
didn't know
Okay.
who. Like, he turned into somebody completely different because he was just everything like pissed him off.
Was he able to open up to you at all about his experiences?
No, not really. He did share with me the frustration over one of his injuries. He actually had to have emergency spinalectomy. He had injured his back in Iraq, so he pretty much had to have emergency surgery. Otherwise, he could lose his ability to walk.
So with that, so that definitely is a major medical. How did that affect? Because he was still in. How did that affect his military process? As he was still in the military, he was still, I guess, going into the office or going to his duty station. Did that?
He hated it because he felt like he couldn't do his job as a soldier. He couldn't do what he was supposed to do. So it took a toll on him. He was really upset about it. He was always in pain. It's just, he wasn't the person that I had fallen in love with.
Was he taking medications at all?
He was taking medications, and he was probably taking medications that he should not have been taking, and then also drinking a lot as well.
You mean like legal, illegal stuff, or
Both.
Both?
Okay, so he was prescribed some things, and then he took some other things.
Right.
Now, Vita, you have it. I know you're pretty savvy. I think, at least I think you've become savvy since then, and understand. Do you think he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder?
He was. He had told me that he had PTSD and depression, and I remember one of the questions before the kids and I actually moved to Texas was, "Are we going to be okay?" because you read these articles or you see stories in the news where they're talking about this Marine or this soldier came home and basically like killed his whole family and himself. That was my concern. Were me and the kids gonna be okay? And he had told me, like, of course you guys are gonna be okay. Like, I would never let anything happen to you. I would take care of myself. If I ever had the thought that I want to hurt you guys, like, that would not happen. So he assured me, that, and I trusted him and I believed him as my husband.
Do you know if he was getting any treatment? There was prescribed medicine, but do you know if there was any counseling on that?
He was.
He was actively going to counseling.
He was going to counseling. He was seeing a therapist at Fort Hood and a civilian therapist, because I felt like the Army wasn't, or his unit wasn't as helpful for him to receive treatment at Fort Hood. So I convinced him to seek outside help.
And how was that going?
I think it was. He told me that he was able to talk about his feelings and like what he was going through and the struggles that he was dealing with, and I was happy with that because he needed to release whatever anger or frustration that he had, because he didn't want to tell me what he was going through.
God, that's hard. Did he ever really open up to you or not?
He had just told me that, he was frustrated because he couldn't, like I said, that he couldn't do his job physically. He was always in pain. He was tired. I feel like he was giving up.
Yeah.
Did he ever mention an incident, or was besides the incident that hurt his back? Was there any other kind of incident that was mentioned that you were aware of?
No.
Okay.
No, it was kind of like he didn't really ask me about anything that I had seen when I was in Iraq, and it's kind of like an unspoken thing between service members. You want to talk about it, you'll talk about it. If not,
Yes. Okay.
How were you? You must have been really frustrated.
It was frustrating.
Or sad, frustrated. I don't even know where to start with this.
It was frustrating. It was, like I left my whole life in California for us to start our lives here, and this is how you're treating me. And we're fighting a lot. And I remember on January 13th, 2013, it started off as like any other day, because I remember he had woke up and he said he was going to go get donuts for the kids. And I was like, oh, donuts for breakfast, whatever. But, they were excited. They're like, yay, donuts, sprinkles, chocolate, sugar. And I was like, all right.
More.
So then he does that. He goes and he takes my son with him to run some errands. They go to like PetSmart.
Yeah.
They buy, because we had a turtle tank with fish, so they buy some stuff for them. And then he had went to his friend's house to go do laundry and to go check on his friend's house because they were out of town. So he was just kind of like watching over it. And then I remember I was making dinner. I was like, oh, let me get ready for dinner. And I still kind of like don't eat this ever just because of that.
You don't eat, say that again?
The dinner that I made that night, I kind of like, I don't eat it.
What were you making?
I was making pork chops.
You won't eat pork chops,
No.
though? Okay.
No. Okay. So I don't eat pork chops. Like the way that I was making them, I remember seasoning them. And I had them cooking and I put them in a George Foreman grill. Mm-hmm. And he just started fighting with me. And I remember like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Tell me, what was he saying?
He was just like, I know you don't love me. Like, I know you don't want to be with me. You think I'm a piece of shit. Like, you think I'm this, you think I'm that. And I'm like, where's this coming from?
And I'm just, you tell me if I'm projecting, but from the point maybe where he was thinking that he was less, that because I'm sore and I got pain and I can't do.
Like.
Okay.
Like he wasn't like a man?
That's what I felt like.
You think he was feeling like that? Yeah.
I honestly feel that's how he felt. And he was telling me all these things, and I'm like, I've never said these things in my life to you. Like, I don't understand. And I was cooking dinner. I was making pork chops and like rice and some veggies. And so he's in the living room and I'm in the kitchen. And he starts just like picking up things in the kitchen and just throwing them at me from this little window. And I was like, what is wrong with you? And that's when he was like, you don't love me. Like, I'm worthless. Like, you think I'm a piece of shit because I can't do anything. And I'm like, I don't understand why you talk to me like this.
Had he ever physically been violent with you? Had he ever thrown anything at you?
No. So, no, it was really, like, I was really I think I was more surprised than hurt.
Okay.
I'm like, this isn't you. So then he goes, Lily's crying. I told Mark to go to the room because he's starting to get upset because I'm starting to cry. And so Lily's sitting in the living room crying. And so me and James are yelling at each other. And he was like, you need to shut Lily up. I'm like, oh my God, like, you don't talk to my daughter like this. Like, she's a baby. So he goes to the room, to one of our guest rooms, and I follow him. And I guess he knows that I'm following him because once I turn the corner, I see him like lifting up, we had a futon in there. So he's lifting up the bottom of the futon and he reaches for something and I see that it's black and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? Oh shit, like what is this? And I see that it's a gun. I'm like, oh my God, like so many things are going through my head. I tell Mark, I'm like, Mark, lock the door. And I go to the living room and I get Lily and she's like crying because he's yelling at me and he has this gun in his hand. I was like, oh my God, like I honestly thought that was the only time that I was ever scared of him. Because I honestly thought that we were all going to die that night. And so I have Lily, and somehow I had her in the living room. He was trying to get her, and I picked her up, and I just remember like I had her underneath me, like in a ball type thing, and I was like holding on to her, and I finally was like able to like kick him off of me. And somehow we ended up in the kitchen up against the wall. And I remember since we lived in a duplex, I was hoping that our neighbors were going to be home and that they could hear. So I was like kicking the bottom of my heel against the wall so they can hear me. And that just made him even more madder. And he would try to hand me the gun. He was like, kill me, like do it. Like, I know you want to. Just kill me, do it. And at one point, he had grabbed my hand. He put my hand on it. He was like, I know you want to kill me, just do it. And I was like, please don't do this. Like, this isn't you. Like, we need you. I mean, the kids need you. Like, look at Lily. And I had Lily in my arms. So I have Lily, and she's, like, facing me, and he has the gun. And I'm backed into a corner, and he's in front of me. And somehow we ended up, I think I was on my knees, and I was holding Lily. And then he's standing in front of me. He's like, I know you want to do it. And I was like, oh, no, please don't. Like, I love you. Like, and then he told me that he loved me too and that he was sorry. And then the next thing I know, like, I heard the gun go off and then he falls backwards. So I'm holding Lily in my arms and I don't want her to see. So she's like this and I have her head like to my shoulder. And I hear Mark come out from behind me and he's like, Daddy, like, what did you do? What did you do? And I look down and I see him. And at first I'm like, it took a second for me to register. So, because there was no blood. I didn't see any blood yet.
Yeah.
So I put Lily down and then I start CPR. And I tell Mark, go to the neighbor's house and get help. So our next door neighbor like comes over and I'm on the phone with 911 and I'm telling him like what happened. And like I remember screaming, like I'm doing CPR and the neighbor comes in and then her husband comes in too and he takes Lily and he takes her and the kids to her house and the cops come in. So I'm doing CPR, my neighbor's helping me, and then all of a sudden there's like blood everywhere. So I remember I was wearing, I don't remember what I was wearing, but there's blood all over me, all over my face. I probably look like a damn vampire, and it's like all over my hands because I'm doing CPR, and as I'm doing CPR, I'm pumping on his chest like more blood is coming out. And I just, the cops had come in, and there was I think 2 or 3 officers, and they asked me what happened, and I tell them, and I called the neighbor to come and help me, and they asked where the weapon was, and I had moved it, and they asked me why I had moved it, because it had fallen on the floor. Thank you. The weapon that he used had fallen on the floor. So I told them that I moved it, and the officer looked at me like, why'd you touch it? I was like, I have kids in the house. Like, what do you guys want me to do? So I'm like thinking like, okay, they're going to help me. They're going to help me do CPR. And they're like, okay, ma'am, we need you to leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not leaving. So then a firefighter came in, and he's like, okay, we're going to take over. But I did not want to leave until I knew that they were going to continue CPR.
Okay.
So it literally took 2 officers to drag me out, kicking and screaming from him. And then when they took me to the front, I remember how cold it was, because it was in January. It was in Colleen, and I just remember like, damn, it's really cold outside. I was actually barefoot, and the kids were at the neighbor's house. You know, there was so many, like, more police cars came. They blocked off the street. I think there were probably like at least four police cars that I could see, and then of course the fire truck, and then the ambulance. And then I'm thinking like, okay, you know, everything's gonna be okay. Like, they're gonna tell me that they're gonna take him to the hospital. So about like,
Can I ask you, where did he shoot himself?
he shot himself in the chest, point blank. Right.
Where, at his heart? Where
in his heart, like right above her handprint, right above my daughter's handprint tattoo. He had her handprint tattooed over his heart, and that's where he had shot himself. And so, you know, I'm waiting for them to come out and be like, okay, man, we're gonna take your husband to the hospital. Like, he's gonna be okay. Like, you know, I'm thinking that's gonna happen, and it's just quiet. And I keep asking, like, what are they doing? What are they doing? And then, remember the paramedic came out, and he was holding this EKG strip with his heart rhythm, and it was just flat. And he was like, man, I'm like, sorry, but your he's gone. I'm like, what do you mean he's gone? Like, I don't understand. He told me that he was gone. And then I just remember, like, he's dead? Like, is he really dead? Like, this can't be happening, you know? Like, this morning he was buying my kids donuts and all the sugary shit that I don't want them to eat for breakfast. And now he's gone. And when they told me that, like, I just felt, like, really hot. Like, I remember, like, I started gagging, and then I just fell onto the floor, and I couldn't breathe. Like, I was hyperventilating. Like, you can't tell me that he's dead. Like, no, this isn't happening. So then, I guess, detective had come.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, we gotta go through your house and like look at some stuff. I'm like, what do you mean you're gonna go through my house? Like, what are you trying to say? And it took a second for me to realize, like, you think I did this shit? Like, you think I fucking killed my husband? And he was like, well, we're gonna look at the evidence. I'm like, what evidence are you talking about? So then I told him I wanted to see my kids. I was like, I want to see my kids. He was like, you can't see your kids right now. I'm like, what do you mean I can't see my kids right now? He's like, we have them next door with the officer. They're safe. If we decide, if we find that, you know, there's no evidence that shows that you killed your husband, then you can have your kids back. So then I'm just like, fuck, like, my husband's dead, and now they're trying to take my kids from me. So they're going through my house, and then, you know, I remember they had taken me into my garage. They opened the garage, and it was like, I was shivering, and I asked one of the officers, like, you can tell he was a newer officer, so I asked him if he could get me, like, at least a sweater or a pair of shoes, because it was freezing outside. So I did, and then the detective comes back out, and he's like, trying to read me, I guess, my Miranda rights.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? No, like, this isn't happening. And he's like, we're going to take you into the garage. He's doing that, and we're going to do your fingerprints, and we're going to take pictures of you. So I literally still have my husband's blood on my face and on my hands, and they're taking my fingerprints, and they're taking pictures. They tell me, like, look straight, and they take pictures on the side. And I'm like, this isn't happening. Like, I want my mom, you know? I just kept thinking, like, I want my mom to be here. And I had asked him, I kept asking the detective, like, I want to see him before you take him away. Like, I had to see that he was gone. You know, I had to see he was gone. So, he was like, well, you know, if we find, you know, that you didn't do anything, then you can see him. And I was like, please promise me that I can see him before you take him away. So he said yes. So I felt like I was probably there like an hour or two sitting in my garage in the cold. And then he came out and he was like, all right, ma'am, like, you know, you're telling us the truth. Like, I'm gonna keep to my word, and you can see him before they take him away. So I was like, okay. So I remember when they were rolling, he was on the gurney, and he was in a body bag, and it was black, you know, and they opened it up for me, and I saw him. It didn't look like him. Like, I couldn't believe it, you know, like, being in the medical field and being in Iraq and, being a medic, you see death. You see so much death with our soldiers and even children over there in Iraq. But, like none of that. You put all that together, it doesn't compare to how I felt when I saw him laying in that body bag. So then they took him away and I was just left there with the kids and my neighbor that had come to help. She was actually friends with one of his best friend's wives, so she had called him to come over and he came and, he stayed with me and he was there when they let me see him before they take him away. And I remember just flipping out and I'm trying to, no, I want to touch him. And they're like, no, man, you can't. So then, they put him in the van, and I remember he's holding me from behind, and he's a big guy. He's probably 6'4", and he's just holding me no, you can't, you have to let him go. I'm like, no, I can't. Just the way that I can't describe the way I felt at that moment when they had told me that he died. I didn't want to believe it. And then actually seeing that he was actually really dead, that's fuck, this is real. This is my life now. So then the officers, they brought back my kids, and by this time, it had got back to his unit. So some of his I think his first sergeant, his sergeant major had come, and their wives were there. I don't even know why their wives were there, but I was grateful after the fact because they actually, I go into my house and you don't realize, when something like this happens, you go into your house, you think it's going to be back to living normal, but it's not. His blood was just there in a pile. It was just just pulled there, and I'm thinking damn, I have to clean this up. Now I have to clean this up. And so a couple of the wives and my husband's friend, that his wife had come, and that was actually the first time I met her, was when she was on her hands and knees cleaning my husband's blood off the floor with bleach. And we're all very close now. I actually baptized their son. Mm-hmm. So, it's just, I don't really talk to very many people that my husband worked with in the Army, but I do talk to a couple, and at that time I was just grateful that, the sergeant major, his first sergeant, had brought their wives over because they helped clean up my mess. And the freaking pork chops were still cooking in that damn George Foreman grill. They were still plugged in. That's why you can't eat. I can't, even the smell of it, bothers me because it brings me back to remind me, and I don't use bleach at all to wash my clothes because just the smell of bleach, just bothers me. I barely started using bleach to clean my house, and I have to it can't be plain Clorox bleach. It has to be something with some kind of scent.
Yeah. Because
that's what they use to clean up his blood.
Evita, tell us about the next months after James passed away. That must have been a crushing time for you.
So after he died, him and his mom had decided, or his mom and I had decided that we were going to have him cremated because that's what he had wanted to do. So we're like, all right, let's cremate him. We'll split his ashes. And obviously I didn't want to be in Texas without him, which is the reason why I had uprooted our lives and moved back to Texas to be together. So the only option for me was to go back home to California to my parents.
Yeah.
And I had told them, I was like, all right, I'm coming home. I appreciate you guys letting us come back. And they're like, well, where else are you going to go? You have to be with us. We need to take care of each other. So I'm there. And I remember telling my dad, okay, I'm only going to be here for 2 years. After 2 years, I'm gone. And he was like, yeah, okay. So, I moved back. My brothers fly from California to Texas, and they helped me drive back. And Lily's godfather, which is one of James's best friends in the Army that he worked and deployed with, he flew from San Diego, and he was out there, and he was helping me take care of her. And my best friend Angie, she flew from California, and this day after that she found out that he died, she was like, I need to be with you. I need to be with my best friend. So she stayed with me for a little bit, and my parents were actually in the Philippines on vacation at the time.
Okay.
So trying to get a hold of them was like really hard, and like the way I had to tell them was like devastating, and it was kind of, I was hoping like they, with their tickets and everything, we were trying to get them like situated to be able to come home for his services. And thankfully I had a really good casualty assistance officer that was able to make it happen. So he got my parents home, and they were able to make it to his wake and his funeral. And you know, they needed to be there. My dad and James, you know, they probably didn't start off on the right foot, but that was his son. James was his son. And he really did. He loves him. You know, he still loves him. But so, you know, his funeral was like, there were so many people there.
Was that here or?
It was in Houston.
Oh, it was in Houston. I
Yeah.
got it.
There
But
was-
I know he's buried
He's
here.
buried here.
Okay. Yeah.
I moved him. I moved him from Houston, and he's
Okay.
actually at Riverside National.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So he's here closer to us. So when I come back home, California, you know, I'm like, dang, I just left this place. Like, now I have to live here again, like, without him. Like, this is so shitty. And, you know, it was going to be on my life. I had to deal with it. And I was so angry, and I was, like, so pissed off at him. And, you know, I felt like I hated him.
Did you felt probably bad or
Like, he
I know
left
that's-
us. He left us. He left
Okay.
us. I was mad at him, and I hated him for leaving us. And, you know, I was kind of ashamed of, like, how he died. Like, oh, my God, I grew up Catholic. Like, you know, that's just something you don't do. You don't kill yourself. If you want to make it to the gates of heaven, I would grow up thinking, like, you know, that's not how you're supposed to die. So I really struggled with that. And then I was just I remember laying in bed for, like, weeks, like, not wanting to shower, not wanting to eat, nothing, just laying there, like, basically feeling sorry for myself and hating him and hating life and hating God. So I remember I had his uniform. It was hanging in my closet, but it was hanging not like where you couldn't see it. I had it like situated so that it was facing me. Like every time I looked in the closet, I could see it hanging. So I had it there, and then I had his stuff shipped over, and I had one of his like rucksacks that he had taken to Iraq with him, and it still had stuff in there. It still had papers. It still had some letters and some pictures, and I'm going through it. And I remember this just one night, I was just so lost, and I was so angry. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to die. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, how am I gonna raise my kids by myself? Like, this is so hard. So I had actually planned my own suicide. I wrote letters to Mark and Lily, my parents, and I wrote letters to my brothers, and I had basically asked them to forgive me and to take care of my kids, and that I was sorry. And so I'm writing this letter, and I have his rucksack, and it's like sitting next to me, and I'm just trying to go through things, like go through his things and my things, just to put together, because me with my list, like how I had to write a letter to my parents to tell them that I was pregnant with Lily, like I wanted everything to be perfect for my kids when I was gone. So I had these letters that were, you know, put together, and then I was going through his stuff to see, like, well, maybe I can put some of his stuff that he had, like his dog tags or his ID or whatever else he had in his wallet for the kids to have for later. So I'm going through it, and in his ruck, there's like a little pocket that's like Velcroed. And you wouldn't
On the
really,
side.
yeah, you wouldn't really notice it unless you knew it was there.
Yeah.
So I opened it, and I was like, why does he have a Bible in here? Like, I was mad. I was mad that he had a Bible in there. I was like, this didn't help him. Like, where was God? Like, why does he let bad things happen to, like, good people and good families? And why does he let people hurt so much? So I was just pissed off. So then I'm like, this shit didn't do him no good. And I'm flipping through the pages, and I'm just getting angrier. I find myself getting angrier. And I look at it, and I look down, and I open it, and one of the verses, the first verse that I had read, it was, submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And that comes from James chapter 4, verse 7.
Wow.
Okay.
And, you know, I believe that things happen for a reason. I also believe in divine intervention. My husband's name is James, and his birthday is April 7th.
Wow.
So I took that as a sign, like, from him, like, no, like, you're not going to do this. You're going to, you have to fight for your life. And I actually have it tattooed on my wrist.
All right.
Oh, wow.
James chapter 4, verse 7. with a Texas bluebonnet, the flower of Texas underneath it. You know, and sometimes I look at it and I rub on it, like, you know, when things seem hopeless and they seem lost, and I feel like I have nothing else to live for, so to speak. And at that moment, that's how I felt. Like I was ready to just end it all. And reading that verse, I feel like my husband, he saved my life. Like he wanted me to live. So I promised him that, you know, I would be his voice. And I would be a voice for, you know, his brothers and sisters who are no longer here with us. I had to find a way to fill in the space that he no longer occupied in our hearts and in our lives. So, you know, my husband hasn't been gone that long. And I'm like, what can I do to get myself out of this? Because I can't live like this.
Yeah.
I can't live with like so much hate in my heart. So, all right, let me be his voice. Let me share his story. So, you know, that was in about February, March timeframe that I had planned to take my own life. And around September, I was invited to Fort Irwin in Barstow, Army base out there, to actually talk for September is Suicide Awareness Month. So I actually was invited to talk about and share his story with soldiers. So I got to talk about his life with over 2,000 soldiers, and, you know, just watching like their reactions and like, oh my gosh, like his life mattered. Like I can see their emotions, like, oh my gosh, like just the way, you know, I was scared. I was scared to go up there in front of all those people that I didn't know. I hadn't been a widow for that long. And just to talk about what type of person he was and, you know, how he died, and to reach out for help and to not be ashamed of it.
That was how much? You said 2,000 soldiers?
It was about 2,000 soldiers.
And that was the message you were trying to
Yeah. You know, that September is Suicide Awareness Month, so
Yeah.
we talked about, you know, I shared his life and his struggles, and, you know, I feel like a lot of them could relate to that.
Yeah. Now I know you have. Can you tell us about your tattoo there? On your
So
shoulder?
I have a memorial tattoo. It's actually a folded flag. It has dog tags, and it says, "For those I love, I will sacrifice." And then I have love tattooed in Arabic.
Okay.
Kind of because we had met in Iraq.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
you met there.
I feel like we
Right.
we found, you know, we found love in a hopeless place, as cliche and cheesy as that sounds. I am grateful that he was part of my life, and, you know, he blessed me with the most beautiful part of him, which is Lily. And, you know, as hard as it is to talk about his life and, you know, to share, it's just something that needs to be heard, and it needs to be told. And as long as people reach out to me and ask me to talk about him, I have to. I have to do it.
Can I?
Yeah.
And let me say this. I look at. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I look at you as like a sister. I mean, just the same way I look at him as a brother. And I wonder why did you talk with us? Because we're trying to do something to help the vets here, but that's like one of the worst stories I've ever heard in my life, honestly. And I've had a lot of people. I've known a lot of people who've gotten killed, and I mean, and you sit there and see it. I mean, I don't even feel like you ought to be holding my hand. I mean, for God's sake. But why were you willing to talk to us?
Because it's a story that needs to be heard. Because
I agree.
I feel as though a lot of us can relate to it, and us as in, you know, veterans. Like you're my brother. You're my brother.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, even though we're a part of different branches, branches give each other shit, but in the end, like, we're brothers and sisters, and we need to stick together, and we need to, you know, to rise above and, you know, support each other and be there for each other. And it's okay to fall, because I had that moment of weakness, and I was so close to the darkness that I had to find the light. And sometimes you have to be that light for other people. That's what I felt.
How were you able to? Because I was reading about you. You've done a lot of positive things, and you've started your own charity to bring light to this a big issue, which is veteran suicide. I'm just wondering where you found the strength to do that.
She's standing behind the cameras.
Oh, don't even. I don't cry much. Okay,
Really,
but
give Uncle Mark a hug.
okay, Uncle Mark. Yeah, okay, good. I'll take you. I'm not giving her back either. But they, I'm just because that was. I can't begin to say how many people would have been so devastated by what you went through. And, you know, I knew your husband died. I didn't realize just how bad it was. And, but you found the strength, and I know you talked about that verse in James, and maybe I'll get my second tattoo and but you were able to find strength rather than retreating into
I had no choice.
despair.
You have to continue.
Actually, we always have a choice, but just you made the total right one. I think a lot of people make really bad choices all the time. You managed to find the strength to move on and lift your heart and help other veterans in the midst of probably about the worst tragedy ever.
At the same time, too, I'm not gonna lie. Some days are still a struggle.
Yeah.
But you have to wake up every day and you have to live life. I have to live the life, that my husband would have wanted us to have. So
Yeah.
that's what we do.
I think before we started to do this show, or this podcast, me and Judge Johnson, we kind of talked, and we really didn't know what to expect. And I said, well, it could be kind of emotional, because whenever you kind of hear the stories, you hear about, okay, and it doesn't make it less or more, but somebody came and found someone in the room, and like the ones we shared, they found them in hotels, but we had no idea.
I was there when my husband died. I didn't get that knock on the door like you had shared. There wasn't a team uniform people. There was no chaplain. His commander wasn't there to tell me that he had died overseas, because I was there when he took his last breath.
And so,
I'll say one thing.
That was the thing. We had no idea.
I've spent a lot of years working with cops. I'm actually a little thankful that they got you something of a resolution that night, because I've seen sometimes these things take weeks and you get treated like crap, and because you're there. And I guess.
And I get it. I understand. The first person they look to is always going to be the spouse.
Yeah, they do, for sure.
Wow. So tell us about your charity. Tell us about what you're trying to do and the message that you want to get out.
So I founded Veteran Suicide Awareness Project in his memory, in his honor.
Yes.
And I go around, like you had asked me to share my husband's story. I was excited. I love to talk about him.
Yeah.
And it's hurt as much as it hurts sometimes, and it brings back like memories and emotions. It's something that I have to go through in order to get his message out there, and to let my other brothers and sisters, I say that as veterans, to know that it's okay to struggle and it's okay to fall, but you can't stay there. You have to keep moving forward, and you have to, like I shared, you have to be the light for others. And there's organizations out there, and there's people out there that care. And I honestly believe that if my husband had seen like how many people cared about him, he might still be here. But then at the same time, like my experiences and all the struggles and the pain that I've gone through, I think that everything happens for a reason. And I think, his suicide was how he died. It wasn't the person that he was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the soldier or the friend or the husband or the father that he was. It was how he died. And that's what I struggled with for like the first year. I had to, it was how he died. It didn't define him.
Yeah, you said two key things. I got a couple questions, and you're just fascinating. You said that wasn't who he was. That's how he died.
Yeah.
I think that's I've never heard that before. That's an amazing piece, and I'm going to remember that. That was,
Yeah.
that's how he died, not who he was. And then my other, if you could share a little bit on that. And then my other one is, does it get any easier? This one was everybody in
Yeah.
the room. It wasn't a dry eye, and so does that get any easier at all, or maybe it's not meant to get any easier? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if it gets any easier for myself and for my family. I see Lily. She'll kind of watch her friends or her cousins with her dads, and I know she's missing that, and that hurts because she'll never get that. And I don't know if it will ever get easier. I think it's just something that you learn to cope with. You learn different methods and different ways to cope with the pain or of missing him, which is why I think my nonprofit Veteran Suicide Awareness Project is so healing to myself and others too, because we just had one of our big events last month, which is the Memorial Day Ruck March. So we start in
22 miles with 22 pounds. I feel like wimps with our 5 mile, with our 6 mile one.
We're gonna figure out.
Yeah.
We'll
We
figure
gotta
out
blow this lady away here, Sergeant Major.
So you just said something. You said the nonprofit is a way of healing, and that it may not be get at this point, because that's really kind of fresh, I would say, within several years. But you said the nonprofit gives you what we like to talk about is mission. We believe that everybody should have a mission, but you said that has some kind of therapeutic or some kind of healing in this nonprofit.
It does, especially for the Memorial Day Ruck March. Lily can get one of the daddy's flag.
Okay.
Yes. For
Yeah,
the
that's
Memorial
good.
Day Ruck March, we rucked 22 miles. We ended at Roadside National Cemetery.
Okay.
We started at Norco with the American Legion, and we had over 40 people join us this year, which is really exciting. And
41 next time.
Okay.
Yes.
This is what's your plans on this flag?
So
That's a picture. Yeah.
this flag is just an example of this picture of my husband. He was a stud, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good looking guy. Good-looking guy.
He's a good looking guy.
Yeah. Good looking soldier there.
So everybody carries a flag, an American flag, with a picture of a service member that died by suicide. Okay. And I'm a pretty visual person, so we hand these flags to them, and I ask the participants to keep the flags. And I tell them, they're part of your family now. Please put them in a place where you can remember them. And if you want, even Google their families or Google their names. You can reach out to their family members. They would love that. They would love to know that, my dad or my mom is being honored and remembered, not because of how he died or
That
she died.
is something, because I remember years ago I had a family member who had committed suicide, and the feeling I had was a lot of people were kind of avoiding me. It's like they don't want to talk to you, friends and that. And I notice you're saying to reach out.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So are you getting a lot of support around for this? Because and that's one, and a lot of support from organizations, and because you said you leave from Norco, was it VFW?
American Legion.
American Legion. Okay.
Yeah, we do. We get a lot. We get volunteers.
Okay.
We have trail vehicles that will follow us through the night, and then we have people that will contact us. Like, where are you guys at? Let me bring you some snacks. So walking 22 miles a night, you get hungry.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out how I can do that. One day, I had my knee replaced, so it's not making it easier. I mean, I can walk about 5 miles, but 22 with 22 pounds, that might be a bit rough. But
it's and I tell them too. But by the time we finish this ruck, it's going to be about 8 hours. Just think about it. Up to 8 veterans have already died by suicide by the time you finish this.
Wow.
yeah.
So for me, it's really personal.
Do you find? Oh, I don't. That there's a little bias against veterans who take their own lives versus the veterans, say, who. The veteran takes his own life who's suffering from depression and post-traumatic stress disorder versus, that's one, then the other who dies in direct combat. He's shot or something like that. Do you find that there's a bit of a bias against those who commit suicide, or?
Unfortunately, yes.
You do? Like how? Tell us.
Because of how they died.
Well, yeah.
Because
I
of how they
mean,
died.
I'm not saying I don't agree with it. I do, but like, where do you see this bias? Like,
There,
what have you seen?
there are some organizations that won't recognize the like my husband because of how he died, and that's okay because they have the right to, pick and choose who they want to honor.
No, I don't agree with you.
I mean,
I'm sorry. I would agree with you with anything now, but that's one thing. No, I
Not
don't think
like-
they should do that.
I'm not saying that it's okay. It's okay, but for them to pick and choose who they want to honor, that's fine. That's on them. But for myself and for other suicide survivors, having somebody specifically want to honor their loved one regardless of how they died, it means a lot, and people don't understand like how much it means to the families for people to walk 22 miles and carry their loved ones with them.
A question. Now, he was still in the service when he passed.
Correct.
What kind of discharge did they give him? Do they
Honorable-
make? Yeah. Do they get? Does he even get a discharge? I don't even know. How's that?
I don't know. Good question.
You got
I was a
discharged.
JAG for years. I don't know.
Yeah,
the answer. I don't.
Yeah, but I'm just because obviously, and we deal with that a lot of the results of people's service. We deal all of our people in our courts. I work in the Riverside Court. Every one of those individuals, they are only authorized to be in that court because of their service results, PTSD and all these kind of things, and people kind of lose that. These individuals who commit suicide. This is not because, probably not for their service. They probably would have never happened.
My husband's suicide is service connected.
Okay.
So fortunately, my children and I are able to receive benefits every month.
Okay. That,
Yeah.
awesome. That we did that right. We did that.
Yeah.
And I am thankful. for that.
Yeah, we did that right. I wanted to ask that question because I wanted to know, and I'm sure people would be interested. But could it be those kind of questions are real serious because the deal with our lives can be kind of dicey. But I'm just glad that our DOD they got that one right.
They are taking care of us, which I'm very
Thank
thankful
you.
for, and they
Yeah,
take
thank
care of
God. Thank God.
my children's education benefits as well.
Great.
I mean, I would rather have my husband here, of course, eating hot dogs, which I hate, and beans for the rest of my life. If he was alive,
yeah.
But
Right.
but
Well, we
he's
did
not.
that one.
Vita, do you have? I think there's probably a lot of spouses out there dealing with. Do you have like a message for them or anything? I'm not sure how to ask this question. And the reason I'm not, because I do know things like suicide. Sometimes you can beat yourself up. You can beat yourself up. You can blame yourself, and it's totally wrong to do that to yourself. But I'm wondering if you have any message of hope or something that you could send out to people who might be watching this.
For myself personally, I did question why.
Yeah.
I try to replay so many scenarios, hundreds of different ways in my head.
Yeah.
Maybe I can pick and see what went wrong or what I missed or
Yeah.
where he was starting to falter and where he was starting to change. And it took me a while to realize no matter, even if I found out why, it's not going to bring him back. It won't bring him back. And I couldn't beat myself up over it. I couldn't let it eat me alive. And it was bringing me down. It really was bringing me down. Because, every morning I'd be like, why are you gone? Like, why is this still my life? But now I have found, my mission in life, which is to raise suicide awareness for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be open about his suicide and to share his life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll always say it's a story that needs to be shared. It needs to be heard and told, and I will do it with my last dying breath. I will talk about him and the person that he was and just the soldier he was. And for the spouses out there that struggle with the whys, you need to, I hope that you guys aren't blaming yourself, because I've been there and I know exactly what it feels like to blame yourself and think it's your fault when it's not. It's not your fault. You have to learn to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
You have to learn to forgive them. And it took me a while to forgive Jamie, but I've forgiven him. And I forgive him because it wasn't him.
Yeah.
You know, I think that if he knew how much he would have hurt us or he would have hurt anybody, he would have never done what he did. But at that moment and at that time, at that second, that was his only way. That was all that he knew, and that's what he did. And now I live my life to, you know, remember him and to show my daughter, you know, that this is how your dad died, and never be ashamed of how he died, because that was who he was. He loves you, and you know he still loves you.
That's the message you're giving her, because you're very. I mean, I will say this: if a couple times, if I've made faces, and if it comes out on the filming, it's because of you. You know, Liliana sits over there. She's made
amazing,
faces at me.
amazing.
She's really pretty remarkable. You're a rock star, young lady. But I don't even know what my
she's
point
one of my
was.
reasons.
But you're very open in front of her too. You don't hide it. I agree
Never.
with you, by the way. But you think it's best to be real open about everything. And
I am, and people are surprised when I take my daughter with me because she's so young. Like, oh, you were okay with her hearing this? She already told me that she Googled me. She's read articles.
yeah, she's smart.
She showed articles of mine. She's like, oh yeah, I Googled you, mommy, and me and my teacher were reading about you in class. I was like, you're like second grade child. What are you doing?
Have you talked at any of her classes, or you
No,
talked to kids?
Not yet. Not yet. I don't.
Now you said, I think you said earlier, you're going to go by James's gravesite today. That's cool. I remember. I'll just tell a story. One time I said we were Facebook friends, but I didn't really know you. I think it came through you, Sergeant Major. And one time you put out there that you wanted someone to go by James's. Was it? I think it was his birthday.
That was in January. That was at his anniversary. I had COVID, and you went, and you left his coin there. And I love it.
Know. I mean, this is an Army soldier who needed a visit. So I was more than happy to. I just kind of think.
I know.
I saw a lot of young guys just like him, and I tell you what, I feel like I'm alive today because of them. I deployed to Iraq as a lieutenant colonel. I was in my 40s at the time, and I tell you it wasn't me out there on the gun and on the saw on top of the trucks. It was him, guys like him. So I am deeply grateful. So I'll be out there every January 13th.
I really appreciate that.
Oh,
he had so many visitors that day.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That's kind of the beauty of being able to connect and having a band of brothers, and the beauty of the media source that we've got. We actually get a chance to use it for good, and I think this podcast that we have will impact a lot of people.
I really hope so.
Yeah, your honesty.
We're trying. Yeah, we're trying. We're learning.
So
I don't say anymore like, make sure you friend our YouTube page or something. I've learned that. But Evita, what are your plans from here out? Do you have any big plans in addition to your your charity?
For Thanksgiving, we give gift cards because Thanksgiving was my husband's favorite holiday. He could eat too. He was a big guy, big appetite. So we give grocery gift cards, and we send them to families throughout the states. So not just in California, we'll also have like Instacart.
Veterans family or any family?
Veterans families.
Veteran family.
Even survivor families. Because it's hard to struggle during the holidays. It
Oh,
really is. So that's a little way that we give back. And for Christmas, we make Christmas Eve boxes for surviving children, which consists of pajamas, Christmas movie, maybe an elf on a shelf if they want one.
okay.
So we give them that, and for the older kids, we'll give them Amazon gift cards so they can pick and choose what they want. So it's all about, for my husband, he was always, we gotta do stuff for the kids. We want them to have these memories. Okay. So I want to be able to give back to the kids as well in his memory.
Has his loss in some ways made you think a better, less, maybe more unselfish human? I'm just curious, how do you feel about that? Because you seem to be devoting your life to helping veterans.
I think it has. I'm more empathetic to people because I understand. Because I know what it's like to be at that dark place. And I know what it's like to want to give up. And Took me. Sometimes I feel like I'm slipping back into the tunnel, and then I gotta pop my head back out into the light. So, with veterans like ourselves, I feel like I can openly share my story because they
Yeah.
can relate.
Well, Evita, I can tell you, I'd step in front of a bullet to protect
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I think you're amazing. I
Thank you.
can't imagine. Sorry. I think tell you what, I know you get one protect straight for you, one of these Judge Mark Johnson for outstanding achievement coins.
That's how you do it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yes,
so we've
that's
got
it.
that's three. I know that there was one I gave to James, and
This
then
is-
one
this-
that
this is the
I
same
probably
one.
went to her.
This
Yeah.
is the one that you put on his
Yes,
grave.
and I gave you.
Lily,
No, I gave Lily one, and God, I'm just really happy. We need to make sure that we put two things are shown right now: the crisis hotline. They're actually helpful. One time,
Sure.
I can tell you, I got a call. I got a call from a veteran who was in crisis, and I called the line. And next thing you know, I think the police went out there from Riverside, but they were great. They actually did
Okay.
well with this
Sure.
guy. But I'd like to make sure we put all the contact information up for both that, the Veterans Crisis Hotline, the Suicide Hotline, as well as your charity too, because you guys are doing some amazing work.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Sergeant Major, you're better at closing them
Well,
out, telling people to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah. Well, as we conclude this amazing podcast where we talked about a serious serious issue, a serious concern, and hopefully you got the opportunity to take some positive away
Yeah.
from this story. So you can email us at info@rnhf.org, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as hit the like button on our Facebook. So thank you.
Oh wait, let me just finally. Can I bring her back one more time?
She's
You
amazing.
were ruining my performance, young lady. I was smiling at the worst times, but
Yeah.
yeah, what a blessing.
She
This
is.
is
Can I
why
give
we
you
do
a
it.
hug too? All right, thanks, sweetheart.
Thank you.
All right,
All right, that's a wrap, man.
that's a wrap.
Hey, thank you for watching. Hopefully this was very helpful to you, and we share some information that may answer some questions for you. Follow us on social media. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below if you have any questions or any thoughts. Reaching New Heights Foundation was happy to bring this to you and supporting Veterans Program. Thank you and have a good day.